This is DW News Africa. Coming up on the program, how can Nigeria fix its policing problem? Contrary to the promises of reform in law enforcement, survivors of police violence tell us their injustices have not ceased. Also coming up, forced out. Batches of foreigners leave South Africa as xenophobia ramps up. We discuss what's behind the ongoing rhetoric. I'm Tomi Oladipo. It's good to have you with us. Authorities in southeast Nigeria have scrapped a notorious police unit in Imo State after Amnesty International documented allegations of torture, illegal detention, and enforced disappearances. There are now new outfits in place of the disbanded police formations, but many Nigerians worry it's only a rebranding exercise and that the core problem of accountability has not been addressed. DW West Africa correspondent Azizat Olaoluwa has been digging into the issue, but note her report contains scenes some viewers may find disturbing.
This footage of a defenseless young man in Delta State, southern Nigeria, being shot at by a police officer in plain clothes went viral online a few weeks ago. The officer and his colleagues took him away, and he died in police custody. This led to widespread outrage and calls for justice. The police officer and 4 others have been arrested and charged to court. But it's not an isolated incident. Nigerians have for years called for the end of police brutality, accusing many officers of intimidation, illegal arrests, torture, and extrajudicial killings. Recently, Amnesty International documented alleged police brutality against an anti-kidnapping police squad called the Tiger Base Unit in Owerri, the Imo State capital in the southeast. The NGO alleged human rights violations, including prolonged arbitrary detention, torture, extortion, and enforced disappearances, including the removal of children from their mothers without records. The unit was later scrapped in May, with a new squad called the Violent Crimes Response Unit, VCRU, set up. The same commander is operating the new unit, and activists say most of his officers were retained. Our team identified 4 alleged police brutality victims of the now disbanded Tiger Base Unit here in Imo State. 2 of them first agreed to talk to DW, but then they withdrew, scared that talking to the media could backfire. Many victims of police violence are so severely traumatized that it has forced them into silence. I have traveled to Owerri to meet with some of the victims.
Yeah. Good morning.
Kenneth Anyawu's life was upended during a village meeting in April. He said he was shot by an officer of the former police unit when they showed up to arrest a man he was talking to.
They shot me front back and busted my stomach open. Both intestine, fat and everything come out. I was having it in my hand. They still bundled me into their boot, locked the boot and leave me in that place till evening. When they took me to the Tiger Base, they were surprised when they opened the boot and saw that I was alive. One have the guts to ask me, "Are you still alive? Or do you still need 1 bullet?"
The 56-year-old businessman says some of his ribs are now damaged, causing him excruciating pain and unable to provide for his family. Our next victim, we are calling X because they fear further reprisals. X was arrested in the middle of the night when officers of the now-defunct unit came looking for a family member who wasn't at home. X told DW they were detained for several nights, witnessing some traumatizing events.
Inside Tiger Base Arena, you will see them. They will pack boys and shoot them, put them inside their vehicle's boot and drive them away. It was hell there. Everywhere was stinking. It was a small room that they packed people in. 30-something people in a very small room. Women were suffering there. The officers were using the women there, taking advantage of them. They don't have any human sympathy. They don't want to know whether you're dying. They said if you want to die, die.
Unlike these two victims, residents of Owerri were tight-lipped about the operations of police officers. Our team tried to get them to talk, but no one was willing to speak. Many Nigerians have stopped trusting the police force amid increasing reports of brutal and corrupt police officers. Calls for genuine reforms have grown, and Nigerians are demanding accountability so that officers follow the rules of engagement and respect human rights. Chinedu Agu is a lawyer in the state seeking for justice for some of the victims of Tiger Base Unit, especially those arrested in place of their loved ones, a common practice by the Nigerian police.
The Administration of Criminal Justice Law makes it very clear that you cannot arrest anybody in lieu of another person. What I expect from the authorities is not to back those who are doing the wrong thing. When people are complaining that a particular unit is involved in human rights violation, in forced disappearances, in extrajudicial killing, the most reasonable response is not to promote officers in that unit. The most reasonable response is to disband that unit and investigate the officers.
DW's request for answers from the Imo State Police Command on the allegations made by the people we spoke to was not granted as of the time of this report. Kenneth said the police apologized and promised compensation, but it's yet to be fulfilled, and no officer has been prosecuted. For now, all he wants is his life back.
What I want is justice to the fullest. The full compensation for destroying my life and my health back, because I am not okay.
Nigerians have long been hoping in vain for a day when the police would truly be their protectors. But as testimonies from the survivors of police violence show, that may not happen without genuine change.
And on that note, I spoke to Rinu Odola. She's been at the heart of advocacy against police brutality in Nigeria, including the popular End SARS campaign from a few years ago. And I asked her what it would take for Nigeria to chart a meaningful way forward towards accountability and justice in law enforcement.
I think that it's about consequences. I think that it will take consequences for Nigerians to chart a meaningful way forward towards accountability, towards justice in law enforcement, towards building a new country. I think that Nigeria it's my country. I love my country. It has huge potential because of its populace. There's too much at risk for Nigeria today in the world that we find ourselves. So I think that it will take consequences. Nigeria has had panels. I was on one of the judicial panels of inquiries that was set up after the End SARS protest in 2020 as a youth representative. I went on there. Nigeria has had several panels, the Opucha panels, these panels, stop panels. Nigeria committees as well. Nigeria has had reports. Nigeria has had police units disbanded over and over again. And not a new thing that I'd like to tell people around and the media is that Nigeria has had this culture of creating new names for things that are still in existence. So they will tell you we're disbanding things, but then they recreate, they just rename it. It's like giving birth to a new child and giving them a new name, but it's not a new child. It's an old person, but giving them a new name. It happened with End SARS where they rebranded the End SARS unit and they gave it another name. But what we've not had enough of is consequences. If we're serious about a meaningful way forward, Nigeria has to stop treating police brutality as a police PR, like a PR crisis, and start to treat it as a criminal justice crisis. One of the few things, I'll give you an example of what Nigeria did after the End SARS protest ended with the military shooting protesters on the streets in Lagos and other part of the country, is that they immediately set up a PR unit for their police relation officers across the country to come online, especially on Twitter and Facebook, to start to engage and sort of rewrite the story and sort of make it look like the police are working, which they're actually not. Today, you can confirm me that there are a lot of PROs that are online that are just trying to rewrite the stories of victims. So I think that's the first step. Independent investigation as well. I don't think that the police can be the one accused and the one investigating its own accusations against itself. Nigerian police force cannot just be the only institutions that are investigating these allegations. If you accuse a unit of torture, there has to be an independent process that the victims and the public can trust. I think that the next step is fixing our judicial system, the prosecution, not redeploying the police. Another thing that the Nigerian police does quite well is that they transfer the police that has been accused of a criminal act to another unit to continue the same thing. And it's not suspension that will end when the media stops covering it. It's prosecution. If police officers commit crimes, then they should face the court like any other citizens. I think another thing is command responsibility. In Nigeria, we often focus on who is the officer holding the gun, but we don't focus on who gave the order, who supervised that unit, who ignored the complaints, who allowed illegal detention facilities to operate, like the division command officers, who protected the abusive officers. Accountability cannot stop at the bottom. It has to move up the chains. And then reparation for victims. When anybody, not even someone, when anyone is tortured, shot, disappeared, or unlawfully detained in Nigeria, their life doesn't simply return to normal because the government issued a statement or the police PRO issued a statement. These survivors need medical care, they need compensation, they need legal support, they need protection from retaliation, because from my work, we found out that survivors often tend to shield themselves away from calling the police out because the police has threatened them in so many cases that they're going to come back for them. So there has to be reparations, but unfortunately in Nigeria, there's nothing like reparations. You can have cases of the police arresting someone and disappearing them, or throwing them into the Nigerian prison systems where over 50,000 people are currently awaiting trial for years, and they disappear for years. And at the end of the day, maybe after 10, 15 years, this person case manages to get to court and they discover that this was a wrong imprisonment by the police. And maybe the judge manages to issue a judgment saying that, you should pay this person $5,000, $10,000. The Nigerian police never, ever responds to those orders. So there's this ignorance of judicial orders. And there has to also be transparency. We need the records. Who was detained, who was released, who died, who is missing, where are the files, where are the officers now? There is nothing like that kind of transparent system in Nigeria. Nigerians, and that's why we say that Nigerians cannot be asked to trust a system that refuses to show it work. And the biggest, not last for me, is political will. We all know what reform should look like. We all know that torture is wrong. We all know about the fundamental human rights. We know that you cannot arrest one person. You cannot arrest Tommy in place of Reno. You cannot arrest somebody's mother in place of the person accused. We know that suspects have rights, that extrajudicial killings are illegal. But does that mean that in 2026 we do not have police officers brutally executing people on the roadside? No, the problem is not that we do not know. The problem is that the system often protects itself when it's time to act. So I think that the way forward is clear. We need political will to end this, because we have politicians in Nigeria who depend on police officers to oppress the rights of the citizens. We need independent investigation, real prosecutions, command responsibility, reparation for victims, transparency and civilian oversight. Because if one unit is disbanded or one NSAS unit start itself again, or the same officers continue under the same name, then that's rebranding, and we are tired of rebranding. I think that Nigerians deserve a police force that understand that the uniform is not a license to abuse people.
Just in light of what you've said, I'm just wondering, there's hope is one thing, but in terms of what is realistic, these things you're talking about, how realistic are they?
I think that it's realistic to expect that we have political will to end police brutality. Just to start off, I think that I mentioned earlier, that's the biggest thing for me. It is realistic to have police brutality ended when you start with political will. Do the politicians understand that if this continue, they would also be affected. Their children will also be affected. That they can also go out without their parade of vans and their convoys of vans on the street one day and also get attacked. The problem is power. It is very realistic to investigate police officers. Several countries have done it, not just the West, even in Africa. Several countries investigate police officers. It's realistic to prosecute officers, to compensate victims. These are basic functions that I believe of a serious state. What is difficult is that accountability threatens the same people who have protected this abuse for years. I do not think that one protest or one viral video or one disbanded police unit, like we asked during NSAS to disband SARS, will suddenly fix Nigerian police crisis. But I also do not think that we should accept the idea that change is impossible. The realistic path, again, is political will, pressure plus consequences. Pressure from the media like DW, pressure from citizens like Reno, pressure from civil society, pressure from lawyers, pressure from victims' families, pressure from international partners, and consequences inside this system. Both officers have to be suspended, police officers have to be prosecuted, commanders have to be questioned, the records have to be open. These units have to be monitored. That's where realistic reality, if I can call it, or realism sits for me. It's not in pretending that the system will fix itself out of goodwill, because that system will definitely not. But systems shift when the cost of impunity becomes higher than the cost of reforms. And that's why conversations like this matter. That's why survivors speaking out matter, that documentation matter, that even people going out on the streets matter, because each time evidence comes out and each time names are named or a victim is believed or proven to be saying the right thing, then the state has less room to pretend that it doesn't know. Yes, it may be slow because the system in Nigeria will resist it, but it is realistic if and only accountability stop being treated as a request or as something that is being done out of favor, but as a sustained demand. You know, this is a governance crisis for me. And once you accept that, once that happens, then the way forward will become clear. That is realistic.
Very well put, Renu Oduala. Thank you very much for putting that into context for us.
Thank you so much, Tome, for having me.
What's behind the current wave in South Africa of anti-migrant protests, some of which have turned violent? For weeks, groups have marched through parts of the country, ordering undocumented foreigners to leave by the end of the month. Several countries have repatriated hundreds of their citizens, including this batch of Nigerians who left on Wednesday night. At least 2 Mozambican citizens have been killed in the violence, and it's the latest in a recurring wave of xenophobic unrest that has left foreigners, even those with legal documents, worried for their safety.
The experience that I have here in South Africa is terrible. I'm 14 years here in South Africa. Since going up and down, not stable. So I'd rather give up for me to go home with my life than going home with injuries.
You know, I cannot excuse the fact that, it's all over social media. I mean, the ongoing unrest, the 30th of June of 3 year, So I'm aware of that. So I decided it's time for me to go home.
Now, the rhetoric among the protesters involves blaming immigrants for social problems in South Africa, like crime and unemployment, even though analysts say this is scapegoating.
Enough is enough. We want our country back. We are not at all xenophobic. It's unfortunate because now we are misinterpreted around the world. We are not xenophobic. We have welcomed our brothers and sisters for so long, and we have lived with them for so long. But now it's time for them to just go and leave us to clean our country.
Now, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has promised to take action against the vigilante groups stoking violence, and he's warned the public against taking the law into their own hands.
We will and must not allow groups to use the legitimate concerns of South Africans to destabilize our country through inciting lawlessness and violence. We will act against forces who are exploiting the concerns of our people about illegal immigration to further their own political, personal, and criminal agendas. We will not be fooled or influenced by social media campaigns that spread misinformation, fake news, and lies about people who are in our country.
Let's bring in Daniel Steyn, Deputy Editor at Ground Up News, a South African news agency that focuses on human rights and social justice. Daniel, it's good to have you with us. President Ramaphosa has spoken about the people protesting. He's actually said they have legitimate concerns. Do you agree?
That's a tough question. Whether or not the migration of people from other African countries to South Africa is a concern, I guess is up for people to decide. We do have thousands of people entering the country to find work, mostly in contravention of our laws. But our laws are quite restrictive. If you think about it, it's very difficult to move to South Africa and find work legally. So the problem is that the laws actually do not allow for the numbers of people who are coming to South Africa to work in the country legally. And whether that's a concern is subjective. I would argue that it's not the concern that people think it is. The problem is that people are blaming issues such as unemployment, crime, poverty that the vast majority of South Africans experience, blaming that on the immigrants coming to the country, and blaming illegal immigration as well as immigration in general for our socioeconomic conditions.
I suppose it's even a problem putting this at scale, in form of scale, because first of all, South Africa has a problem tallying the number of undocumented migrants in the country. So is it even possible to prove or even disprove these claims against them, particularly on crime?
Yeah, we actually have no idea how many immigrants are in the country without papers. And by papers, I mean valid work permits. You'd find many people cross the borders, perhaps with passports and get tourist visas, perhaps cross borders through unofficial entry points, and just come into the country. And we have no idea how many there are. In terms of crime, there are a disproportionate number of immigrants in South African prisons, but the vast majority of them are in prison for immigration law offences. So people who were caught in the country without the proper documentation. So what that means is that we can't say, it means that there's no evidence that immigrants disproportionately commit serious crimes in South Africa. And the anti-immigration movements and protesters that have been gaining traction lately, they maintain that immigrants are responsible for the majority of crime in South Africa. And for that, there's just no evidence.
But this is not the first time there's been this kind of wave of anger against migrants. I'm just wondering what sparked the anger at this particular time?
That's a complicated issue, and I think multifactorial. As you say, xenophobia is not new in South Africa. Anti-immigration sentiment is not new. Many of these myths and misinformation that we're seeing around immigrants in South Africa date back at least 20 years. For example, when Zimbabwe's economy collapsed and lots of immigrants from Zimbabwe came to the country with valid permits, I must add, we saw a big surge in xenophobic rhetoric and violence. Over the past 5 years, it seems that there have been coordinated social media campaigns spreading this misinformation, spreading anti-foreigner sentiment. You have bots and paid accounts that amplify anti-immigrant voices. And that's all happened over the past 5 years, which suggests that there's some money behind this. Where that money is coming from, we don't know. Hopefully, we'll be able to shed some light on that. Hopefully, journalists and the authorities in South Africa will be able to investigate that and shed some light on what lies behind this.
And Daniel, the authorities seem to be on the sidelines, or rather reactive at this time, when serious threats are being made against migrants. Why do you think that is?
I'd hate to speculate too much, but I think, to an extent it would be unpopular for the government to come out strongly against these attacks and proactively protect immigrants, even though that is what they should be doing.
Interesting. Daniel Steyn, Deputy Editor at Groundup News. Thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Right, that's it for now, but be sure to check out our other stories on our website and social media. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.